Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Medieval Dynasty and we're going to be doing sort of a diplomacy guide. So this is going to be showing you, or telling you in most cases, what the success chances or what the best route is to try to talk people to gain reputation. So any person you walk up to in the game, you can initiate a conversation with by saying, hey, do you have a minute? And then you're given a variety of choices for what you can say. And basically the goal is to try to say something they enjoy, and that way you increase your relationship with them. And there's that way, and then if you're not married, you can also try raising affection. And that'll, increase the chances that you can marry someone and then have children, which is one of the important points of this game. So this guide is going to tell you which phrases work with which people, or which phrases are most likely to work in which scenarios. So first we're going to start with small talk. So basically there are three categories of professions in this game, which you can find out by observing the NPCs. And you can use the inspection mode or the alt key, the left alt key, to view your inhabitants' stats. So that's going to be really anyone in the game. But most often you're probably going to be using it for the people who either are in your village or are recruitable to join your village. So she's got 5 in excavation, 4 in hunting, 5 in field work, or whatever you call that one, 3 in diplomacy, 2 in survival, and then 3 in crafting. Okay, so that's how you see their stats. And basically, you kind of got to guess what they do, or if they're your people and you have them assigned to a specific job, then that's kind of where they are. So if you have someone assigned to a field worker, they're a worker. So they're gonna respond to that. So basically, there are 3 categories of professions. For the duration of this guide, we're going to be talking about splitting them up into 3 categories. Field workers, loggers, and miners, we're going to talk about as workers, so that'll be the worker class. Blacksmiths, seamstresses, and innkeepers we're going to call craftsmen. And then the last category is foragers, which is going to be your hunters and your gatherers. So each one of those categories, like I said, is going to be determined either by what you have them set to do, or if they're people in a village. It's not always a perfect system, but you can check their stats, and generally speaking, whatever their highest stat is, that's what category they're going to fall under. So this guy right here is going to be a craftsman, okay? And this lady, I would say, is probably a worker. Based on their stats, but I think I have them both assigned in here, so they're both probably craftsmen. So let's talk about each phrase that each person can say, or that you can say to each person in small talk, and let's talk about how it works. So the first one is going to be, how have you been lately? This question is probably the safest option, as it almost never causes a negative reaction. Even if your conversation partner is in a bad mood, which happens from time to time, you won't actually lose reputation. Best case scenario, you can actually get a decent amount of approval. Craftsmen, I've seen it up to plus 10, and with workers, I've seen it up to plus 15. With foragers, it doesn't usually seem to have an effect. So how have you been lately doesn't normally get you anything. It won't lose you points, but it doesn't normally gain you any with foragers, so that's your hunters or your gatherers. The next option is going to be, nice weather we're having today, don't you think? This one almost always works as well, as long as it's spring or summer and it's sunny. So right now in the rain, it might not work on some people, and that seems to be because people in Medieval Dynasty don't like the rain and they don't like winter, which makes sense. At best, this one can significantly boost your approval. With workers, I've seen it go up to plus 10, and then with foragers, I've seen it go up to plus 7. However, craftsmen's approval rating will usually decrease when confronted with this phrase. So you're not going to want to ask a innkeeper or someone working at a workshop like this about the weather, because it doesn't usually work with them. In fact, usually you'll lose reputation. So then the next one we're going to talk about is, how's the job? I hope you're doing all right. This phrase works best on craftsmen, honestly, and I've seen it get you up to plus 10 reputation. And it also sometimes works on foragers, up to about plus 7. However, workers will usually dislike you for asking this question, so almost always with workers, you're going to lose reputation if you ask them, how's the job? The next one is, I just got back from work in the field. Tough job. Don't use this one on craftsmen, as it will likely have a negative effect on their approval. It may work well on workers, not always, but it does, and when it does, it works. I've seen it get up to plus 10 reputation, and also will sometimes work on foragers, and I've seen it get up to plus 7 reputation. So that one is decent, just don't use it on craftsmen. The next one is, recently I got into hunting. Got any tips? Needless to say, this phrase works best on foragers. Usually +7 to +10 XP, or not XP, relationship gain. From time to time, you might win a worker to your side with this question as well. Usually at small amounts, like +2 reputation, and you'll get a snappy venison response. But you're unlikely to impress craftsmen by using it, and it will usually result in a response about crawling through the mud and a reputation loss. The next thing you can say is, "What a day, I've been working almost non-stop, but I know my hard work will pay off." You know what they say, the early bird gets the worm. This response will sometimes work on craftsmen, and I say sometimes because it doesn't usually work. If it does, you'll generally get maybe +2 to +5 for them, but I've never seen it get more than that. It almost always results in a negative response and reputation loss if you use it on workers or foragers. Most people do not like this phrase. The next one is, "Have you heard any gossips lately?" This one works almost every time on workers, especially women, and it can result in an enthusiastic response and up to +10 reputation gain. Never use it on foragers. You will always lose reputation. And craftsmen are expected to react to neutral or slightly negative to this phrase. So it's best to avoid this phrase with them. They don't seem to like talking about gossip. The next one is, "Have you seen that noble who was passing nearby? I heard people say that he had amazing robes on him." This phrase will most often work with craftsmen and can get a positive response, especially from seamsters, and I've seen it get up to +10 reputation. This phrase will pretty much always garner a negative response from foragers and workers, who will be jealous or they won't care about clothing. So in summary, here are the best phrases for each occupation. For workers, your best phrases are going to be, "How have you been lately?" "Nice weather we're having today." "I just got done working in the field." And, "Have you heard any gossip lately?" Those ones will usually get you a positive response with workers. So either if you have them assigned, either working in the fields, cutting timber, or mining resources, anything like that, the worker class, or if they've got high stats in those areas, those ones are going to be your safest bets to try and improve your relationship with them. The next category of craftsmen, so this is going to be your seamsters, your innkeepers, and your metal workers, so your people working in a workshop or blacksmith. They are going to have the best responses with these phrases. So, "How have you been lately?" "How's the job? I hope you're doing all right." "What a day, I've been working almost non-stop, but I know my hard work will pay off." And that one is really on only sometimes, because I've also seen that one get no response or a negative response with craftsmen. But usually that one will work with craftsmen. And then lastly, "Have you seen the robes on the noble who was passing by?" That one will usually work with craftsmen, especially seamsters. The last category of foragers, their best phrases to try and gain reputation are, "Nice weather we're having today, don't you think?" "Recently I got into hunting. Got any tips?" "How's the job? I hope you're doing all right." And that one's sometimes, because that one usually works, but not always. And "I just got back from working in the field. Tough job." And again, that one is one that will usually work, but not always. I've had it fail sometimes. So that is basically your guide to small talk in the game. And diplomacy is a very, very important skill in the game. You're going to want to develop it as early as possible and max it out. And the only way to do that is by going and talking to people. And the other point of talking to people in this game is definitely to increase your reputation with them. So you can get yourself a wife, and that comes through the next one, which is affection, and you get that through flirting. Or just to get yourself popular with people so you can get them to join your settlement. And that's going to be very important. So you're going to want to make sure you're saying the right thing to get them to join you. So now let's move on to flirting. All right, so for starters, with flirting, you have to know that you need an affection rating of at least 50 and an age difference of 10 years or less to ask a woman to marry you. However, it should be noted that the chance is pretty bad until you get the affection rating up to the 90s. And to be fair, that does make sense if you think about it. People shouldn't just go marrying people that they kind of like a little bit. You know, it should be people that your affection is pretty high for. So flirting is actually pretty straightforward in Medieval Dynasty, and it's pretty easy to pick the correct lines if you go into it knowing the person's profession. However, we'll quickly go through the speech options based on the likelihood of success. So I've broken them down into several sections. These ones aren't going to be as targeted as the last section because they don't correlate as evenly, and I've tested it a lot. and the correlation is not as well defined as some people will have you think. So the following phrases will work almost every time and will give a pretty good affection gain with nearly all females. So the first one in this category is, how have you been lately? I hope you're doing well. If you ever need anything, just ask me. I'll be glad to help, especially since it's you. That one sometimes fails. It has. I've seen it happen, especially if you've got a low reputation with them to start with, or if they dislike you. I've seen that one fail, but usually it's going to do well. And on some females, you'll even get like a plus 15 affection boost. It could be a really big boost. So that one's a good one. The next one in this category is, did anyone ever tell you you have beautiful eyes? This one is probably the most overt one that works almost every time. A lot of times the bold-faced compliments don't work as well, but this one usually does. The next one is, I admire your dedication to your work. You deserve the highest praise for it. I've almost never had this one fail. It works almost every time, even if you're talking to someone who doesn't have a job, they're just standing around the village campfire. That one almost always works. And then the last one is, you look beautiful today. That one works pretty frequently. I rarely have that one fail. Usually you're talking small affection gains, 5 plus 5 or less, but it usually works. And keep in mind that no matter which category you use, unless you piss them off, in which case you'll break off the conversation immediately, but whichever one you use, you can usually only talk to people for any of these, really, small talk or flirting, for 3 or 4 times. So once you've hit that, that's generally all you've got. Hey, look, it's Unigost. Haven't seen him for a while, and he looks much younger now. Anyway, so then the next category is phrases that really only likely to succeed if it's spring or summer, and also it cannot be raining. So the first one here is, we should go out and have lunch by the river sometime. I heard it's really pretty this time of year. This one, like I said, you don't want it to be raining, and you don't want it to be winter. Because even though sometimes it'll work during those seasons, it usually won't. And with this one, if it does work, you'll see small gains. I get a lot of +2 affection boosts with that one. The next one in this category is, you look as beautiful as the blue sky today. General rule of thumb, the sky should be blue when you're saying this. I've had this work in the winter. Not as frequently, but I have had it as long as it was a nice day out, sunny and everything. But generally speaking, this one's going to be weather determined. And then the next one is, on my way here, I saw a patch of flowers, and I instantly thought of you. That one, I usually have it work, but if it does work, I get small gains, and it certainly doesn't usually work in the winter, unless you're dealing with someone who must be pretty stupid. So that is the category that really only works if the weather's good and certain times of year. So the next category is relatively risky phrases, but they still work decently often, usually just for small gains. So the first one is, I recently went hunting and actually took on a bear. It was a tough fight, but I succeeded at the end. This one doesn't usually earn you anything with hunters, in my experience. I don't know if maybe they don't believe you or what's going on, but I don't usually get a positive response from hunters if I use that one. With other ones I do, but it's usually like +2. It's not usually a great response. The next one is, my lady, you seem very fit. You look strong like a boar. That one usually works with workers, so any of your people who are doing your more manual labor positions. Again, usually only like +2, but sometimes they will be offended by it because you're saying they look like a pig, and you'll lose 5 or 10 affection with them. So that one's not a very safe one, but it does sometimes work, so I put it in this category. The next one is, I like you a lot. This one will usually either, if it does succeed, you'll get like a +2 affection boost. More often than not, you'll get absolutely no reaction with that one, unless you've already got your affection very high with them. But a lot of times you'll get no reaction or a slightly negative one. And then the next one is, I admire your honesty. It's a long one, but I always just say the first couple things. This one will work with some people. I haven't found any correlation. I don't know which skills it relates to. Possibly diplomacy. I think like maybe if they've got a high diplomacy stat, that one sometimes works. But usually it doesn't. Usually they take offense and act like maybe they said something that offended you. So that one doesn't normally work. But it does more often than the last category. So the last category is ones that seem to almost always fail for one reason or another. And the first one in this category is, what an amazing dress you have. It suits you very well. This one's never worked for me. I don't know why. It's just a basic compliment. There's only a few dresses that seem to appear in the game, and you'd think that, like, that one looks okay, and there's one that looks like slightly nicer and everything. but I've never had it work. So they don't take that compliment. The next one is, my lady, I cannot help but compliment your shapely figure. That one they also don't like. Like I said, it's too overt. They seem to always react negatively. Uh, Basically, you're ogling them just for their body or something. So they don't like that phrase. The next one is, I'm quite strong. It works like a charm on the ladies. This one's pretty braggy, and they definitely don't respond well to it. I've never had that one work, not even once. The last one in this section is, having a lot of money like I do makes life a lot easier. This one is another one that's pretty braggy, and another one that I've literally never had work. Even in playthroughs where I've got a ton of money, so it's not like I'm lying, it does not work. So, like I said, I've not been able to nail down a correlation for these last two sections of phrases, but the bear one works on most people for a small affection gain, and the boar one works pretty often as well. So I did notice that when you have a high relation with the individual, like either the small talk one or the affection for like flirting, then the I like you a lot and I admire your honesty work more often than otherwise. But like I said, I'm not sure if that's just a coincidence, but I couldn't find a correlation to skills with those ones. So that's a pretty accurate guide to speech options. And as I said before, diplomacy is a super important skill to develop as soon as possible. So you should make sure that every single day you're going into town and talking to people, especially potential mates and people that you're able to recruit to your village. That way you can get that valuable experience for your diplomacy skill tree, which, like I said, is super important. And you can also get people to come join your settlement when you have room for them. So yeah, that's something you definitely want to start right away. Get working through it. Come in here, use these phrases. This guide, like I said, I tested quite a bit before making this guide because I wanted to make sure it was accurate. And I think it turned out pretty good. So that is all we have for today. Hopefully you now know exactly how to talk to people and what to say when you do. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching, and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.